So today, the Bank of Ghana decided to raise its policy interest rate by 100 basis points to 28% and looking to rein in inflation and a wobbling cedi. The Bank of Ghana's Governor, Dr. Addison, provided a briefing at the end of the monetary policy meeting. We've got an excerpt for you.
The improved trade surplus, together with the higher remittances inflow, helped to narrow the current account deficit to $1.64 billion from $2.5 billion in 2021, despite higher payments recorded in the services and income accounts. The capital and financial accounts recorded a net outflow of $2.2 billion compared with a net inflow of $3.3 billion recorded in 2021. The current account deficit, together with the net capital and financial account outflow, resulted in an overall balance of payments deficit of $3.6 billion in 2022, compared to a surplus of $510.1 million in 2021. At the end of December 2022, the stock of gross international reserves stood at $6.2 billion, equivalent to 2.7 months of import cover, from a stock position of $9.7 billion, equivalent to 4.4 months of import cover at the end of December 2021. The net international reserve position stood at $2.4 billion from $6.1 billion over the same comparative period. The local currency came under intense pressure in the year, reflecting the portfolio reversals and lower foreign direct investment inflows, while demand pressures increased. For the year 2022, the Ghana cedi depreciated by 30% against the US dollar after reversals of some of the losses in December. This compares with 4.1% depreciation in 2021. In the year to January 26, 2023, the cedi cumulatively depreciated by 19.1%, 21.4%, and 20.7% against the US dollar, the pound, and the euro, respectively. In comparison with the same period of last year, the cedi had depreciated by 1.5% against the US dollar and appreciated by 0.1% and 0.7% against the pound and the euro, respectively. Summary and outlook. The global economic outlook remains uncertain owing to broad-based and elevated inflation, policy tightening, worsening financing conditions, and lingering spillover effects of geopolitical tensions. These headwinds are likely to persist through the first half of 2023, driving down confidence and weakening real household disposable incomes in advanced and emerging market economies. The ongoing geopolitical tensions continue to weigh on economic and policy uncertainty, especially in the euro area. For emerging and developing economies, growth momentum is projected to remain firm, supported by the relaxation of lockdown restrictions in China and the still high commodity prices. Though showing signs of cooling, inflation levels remain elevated, and central banks, especially in advanced economies, have signaled the need to maintain the tight monetary policy stance to contain inflationary pressures, albeit at a measured pace. Domestic growth conditions softened in 2022 and is projected to moderate further and remain below potential over the near term based on the elevated inflation levels. The updated CIEA showed continued dip in economic activity despite a slight improvement in consumer and business sentiments from the latest surveys. In nominal terms, credit to the private sector rose sharply, but was moderated in real terms by price pressures. There are emerging signs that the current macroeconomic conditions are spilling over to the banking sector. Profitability levels have declined alongside other financial soundness indicators. The latest macro-prudential risk assessments indicated increased pressure on solvency and liquidity of banks ahead of the implementation of the domestic debt exchange program. To moderate the impact on the sector, the Bank of Ghana has announced some regulatory reliefs for banks to help preserve financial stability. The government of Ghana has reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF, which spells out measures that will put the fiscal on the path of consolidation. Consistent with the SLA was the 2023 budget, which has just been passed by Parliament, and front-loads the consolidation efforts. Revenue-enhanced measures, such as the VAT increase of 2.5%, the complete removal of benchmark imports, complete removal of the discount on benchmark imports, on values on imports, and the review of the e-levy should help improve the revenue outlook. On the expenditure side, the lower capping on transfers to earmarked funds from 25 to 17.5%, and the reduction of budgetary allocation to goods and services, as well as rationalization of executive compensation, should help contain expenditures in 2023. The concerns being expressed in the public domain relating to high government expenditures have been addressed in the SLA and reflected in the 2023 budget. The SLA is also contingent on the domestic debt exchange program and external debt restructuring, which, when concluded and the necessary financial commitments obtained, would allow the presentation of the SLA to the IMF board. The MPC believes that these measures will help restore fiscal and debt sustainability and bring down inflation, as well as help stabilize the currency. In the interim, the MPC sees the need to remain vigilant and moderate liquidity in the system to underpin the macroeconomic adjustments taking place to drive inflation on a downward path. Under the circumstances, the committee decided to increase the policy rate by 100 basis points to 28%.